President Barack Obama calls for efforts to counter the Islamic State in Libya. In our Music Maker segment, Cameroonian artist Josephine Atanga. And a former member of One Direction drops his first solo single. And a viral hashtag is born. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. U.S. President Barack Obama has directed his national security advisors to counter efforts by Islamic State to expand into Libya and other countries. The president emphasized that the United States will continue to counter IS terrorist plotters in any country it is necessary. Obama's concerns regarding IS influence in Libya were shared by U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter earlier Thursday.
They're trying to take over the reins of the economy and tax it the way you see ISIL doing in Syria. So you see the same kind of ambitions on their part that you see realized in full flower in Syria and Iraq. And we don't want to be on a glide slope to a situation like Syria and Iraq. That's the reason why we're watching it that closely. That's the reason why we develop options for what we might do in the future.
Well, at a Pentagon news conference, Carter said Islamic State fighters are trying to consolidate their own footprint in Libya by setting up training sites, drawing in foreign recruits. President Obama said the United States will continue to counter IS terrorist plotters, especially in areas with limited or poor governance like Libya, where IS tries to find safe havens. The human rights group Amnesty International says satellite images and witnesses point to possible mass graves in Burundi that appeared after security forces retaliated against rebel gunmen in Bujumbura. Amnesty's director for East Africa, Muthoni Wenyeki, said Thursday the images suggest a deliberate effort by authorities to cover up the extent of the killings by their security forces and to prevent the full truth from coming out. Amnesty said that while bodies were everywhere, almost none were brought to nearby morgues, with witnesses saying many bodies were dumped into at least 5 mass graves. The United Nations is also investigating. The Burundi government has not commented. Political violence has raged in Burundi since President Pierre Nkurunziza announced last April that he was going to run for a 3rd term. Now, Rwandan President Paul Kagame recently announced he intends to seek a 3rd term in 2017. It was originally limited to 2 terms, but in 2015, Rwanda approved changes to the constitution that would effectively allow Kagame to stay in power until 2034 if he wins elections. Some feel that there is very little room for anyone else within the regime or outside it to form a significant opposition political power base. One man wants to do that. He wants to change that. Paul Rusesabagina has been hailed worldwide as a hero for saving more than 1,000 people at a hotel he managed in Rwanda in 1994. His story was portrayed in the critically acclaimed movie Hotel Rwanda, starring Don Cheadle. Mr. Rusesabagina, who is now the president of the Party for Democracy in Rwanda, PDR Ihumure, has announced he will challenge President Kagame in the 2017 election. Mr. Rusesabagina, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Now, you are a man who, is now well known because of being portrayed in Hotel Rwanda. But what inspired you into wanting to actually get into politics and run for president of Rwanda?
There are many reasons that inspired me to think about doing the right thing. Before 1994, and even in 1994, I think I did what my own conscience dictated or advised me to do, was to help save lives.
Yeah.
That time, millions of people were being killed in that country. So I stood up for a cause. The cause was to save lives. But even this period when it ended, this was July 1994, on July 4th, when the Rwandan Patriotic Front took over the whole country. We thought that mass massacres were finished.
Yeah.
But we saw this, unfortunately, repeating itself.
You mean after 94?
After
the big
1994.
genocide, there has been more killings.
More killings.
And now you believe that you can actually go in.
So I believe that.
Yes.
It is high time that Rwandans stand up.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to challenge Kagame for the elections of 2017, but to stop what has been going on.
Yeah.
Maybe as journalists and the audience which is seeing us, they know what happened to refugees in 1995, displaced within the country. More than 80,000 people were butchered in just in 4 days.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Rusesabagina, you know, you are a wanted man in Rwanda. Some years back, the government of Rwanda said that you were funding rebel groups in Congo, and therefore they were waiting for you to arrest you and charge you. Question is, how realistic is your ambition? Can you actually go back to Rwanda now?
My ambition is not that limited. It is not that short. My ambition is on a long-term basis.
Yeah.
I want to stop a man who is telling us that he will lead our country for the next 20 more years.
It's going to start 2017. Are you able actually to go back home and rally people to support you to run for this office?
I'm not necessarily running for 2017.
Yeah.
Suppose Kagame gives me the key of his office and tells me today that, listen, Paul, this is your office. Am I going to get into that office? No. My main objective, the reason why I'm getting into politics is, of course, to change that attitude of a man with an elite controlling, manipulating everything in the whole country.
But you know that Kagame has actually enjoyed goodwill from the international community for having revived the Rwandan economy, brought us relative peace after stopping the genocide. Is it easier to counter that? And do you think he has probably squandered the goodwill?
Well, I think he has rather squandered the goodwill he had. Would he have accepted to go and not to manipulate the Constitution, Kagame will be a hero forever. And this is what he had promised his people outside, his allies outside the country, the international community, I mean. In his own words, he said, I quote, they say I'm going to represent myself in 2017. This is about a year ago. If I present myself in 2017, it means that I have done nothing. I never trained younger generations which will take over from me. And we have seen what he did. He changed the Constitution.
Question is, though, did you at any point actually support rebel groups in Rwanda? They claimed you were supporting FDLR in Congo.
That is simply a pure lie. I never supported any rebel group. They tried to kind of smear my name through the United Nations. The United Nations did their investigations, and they had even fake documents saying that I sent $1,800 to the rebel group to support them. And I told the UN guys that would I have sent the 1,800? With 1,800, how many weapons can one buy?
All right.
Nothing.
Now, in the last few seconds we have, so now, how is your standing with the system? At some point you said your life was under threat. Do you feel safe, whether in Belgium, the United States, or anywhere on the continent of Africa?
I can tell you that I never felt safe since 2000. When I started this struggle, moving around the world, talking about what was going on in Rwanda, when everybody else was kind of silenced. So I was the only person, Paul Rusesabagina, standing and getting into different offices, getting into the international community, talking about what was going on in Rwanda.
We hope you get safe so you can come back and tell us about your efforts. Paul, thank you very much. That's Mr. Paul Rusesabagina, who is the president of the Party for Democracy in Rwanda, PDR, Ihumure. Well, the U.S. East Coast is digging out from a monster storm that dumped more than 30 inches of snow in some places last weekend. Estimates of how much productivity and how much business were lost are just coming in. Milo Sega has our report.
Across much of the East Coast this weekend, a thick blanket of snow. Thousands of businesses shut down, people unable to work, many unable to shop, like this tourist on her first visit to New York City.
We are trying to have shopping, but almost everything is closed. Everything is wide. Nobody here, no taxi, nothing.
Preliminary estimates suggest the storm may have taken as much as $3 billion out of the U.S. economy. Hardest hit, according to Planalytics, a firm that studies the impact of weather on businesses, was retail.
Anything with a cash register is the best way to think of this, is what was hit the hardest.
On Skype, Planalytics President Scott Bernhardt tells VOA the blizzard probably delayed travel plans and purchases. And for some, it's business that will not come back.
A simple one is something like going to a restaurant. If you're unable to make it to the restaurant on Saturday night, you don't go out on Sunday and eat 2 meals, right? That sale is lost.
At Wall Street Deli in the heart of Washington, D.C., the lunchtime crowd is coming back. But deli manager Joanne counts 3 full days of lost revenue.
And also the employee is not happy without no working. I mean, they need money to pay for their mortgage and stuff like that. I mean, 3-day loss is for them too.
Hassan Reza reopened his sandwich store right after the storm. But because most government offices were closed, he said only a handful of customers came in.
Yeah. We opened Monday, but very slow. Just very slow. Thank you, sir.
As big storms go, it could have been much worse. But people should not breathe a sigh of relief just yet, says Scott Bernhardt.
Yeah, the winter is not over yet. We still have February and March coming. I'm sorry, but there's still more winter out there, first of all. But second of all, I think we'll be saying, whew, I'm glad that didn't hit on a weekday.
Bernhardt says timing is everything. Had the storm arrived in the middle of the week, analysts say the dollar losses might have been closer to $10 billion. Milar Sega, VOA News, Washington.
Well, today in our business segment, some good news. Africa's growth is expected to grow in 2016. That's according to a United Nations report released late on Tuesday night. For the details, let's turn to Jill Malandrino, our markets reporter, joining us live from New York. Jill?
That's right, Vincent. According to the UN report, Africa's economy is projected to grow 4.4% in 2016, up from 3.7% in 2015. East Africa is expected to show the highest growth at 6.8% in 2016, up from 6.2% in 2015, mainly driven by the increased inflow of foreign direct investment, increased public spending on infrastructure, and growing domestic markets. But this is what I find interesting as we witness Africa transition into a services-driven economy. The report states West Africa will grow 5.2% and 5.3% in 2016 and 17, respectively, driven by economic improvement in Nigeria with an emphasis on non-oil sectors.
Well, Jill, concerns regarding oil dependence is starting to dissipate.
Of course, crude oil prices and production remain a concern, and the report said economic outlook for Africa remains subject to a number of risks and uncertainties, and weaker global growth and weakness in commodity prices are definitely major risks for Africa. But I'm encouraged by what Adam Iharic, Managing Director of Macroeconomic Policy Division at the UN Economic Commission for Africa, said at a press conference following the report that there is optimism that African countries would manage their economies well. Increasing domestic demand coupled with an improving regional business environment and increasing public investment, especially in infrastructure, underpin the set economic growth on the continent, according to the report. Africa's growth will rely on other factors, including improving macroeconomic management, a buoyant service sector, and increasing trade and investment ties with emerging economies. And these factors are also expected to support regional growth in 2017, according to the UN report.
All right, that's something there. It looks like there is, as we mentioned last week, Africa is raring to go, and we might be expecting more things to come out of that continent.
It could be the next tech hotspot. You're absolutely right, Vincent.
You did mention that the next Zuckerberg might actually come out of Africa. Do you think it's all a question of financing?
Financing is certainly going to be in question, but I think what global recognition that Africa is getting is the potential for infrastructure growth, whether it's from manufacturing, building out the infrastructure, and of course tech innovation is tremendous there. The entire country is migrating over to mobile services, and in fact they expect Nigeria in particular to actually supersede the U.S. by 2025 in terms of demographics as well. There is a tremendous amount of growth in Africa, and places like Nigeria and Kenya are certainly in the forefront, and global major companies are certainly taking notice here.
Well, very, very positive, uplifting news. Thank you very much, Jill.
You got it. Thank you, Vincent.
All right, that's Jill Malandrino, is Africa 54's new business correspondent, and be sure to tune in every Wednesday to watch her reports from New York. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa, about the issues that touch your everyday life. 2 weeks ago, Kenyan forces in Somalia were attacked by Al-Shabaab. 100 soldiers were killed. We asked you if Kenyan forces should remain in Somalia. Hassan Ibra from Mogadishu says, better for them to withdraw or they will lose more troops. Kenya can't go on war with Al-Shabaab. Well, Nofo Rafael Chepa from Bui in Cameroon disagrees and says, let them finish what they started. Maureen Anyango Nyarkano from Kisumu in Kenya insists that they should pull out and Kenya should let Somalis deal with their own issues. Well, Kitty Chepkoskei from Kenya lists different options. If you can't beat them, join them or leave them and walk away. Well, thank you very much for your responses and keep them coming. So, do you think the African Union force AMISOM is succeeding in its mission in Somalia? Well, go to Facebook. The address is Africa54 and tell me what you think. Or send me a tweet at VOA Vince Makori. Well, check me out. Check out our headlines on 24/7 on voaafrica.com. And now coming up, a Cameroonian artist says she was inspired by her family to get into the music industry. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Well, it's Music Makers Friday, and today my colleague Esther Githui Ewart talks to Josephine Atanga, a Cameroonian artist who says she was inspired by her family to get into the music industry.
My grandmother was a singer. My mother is a singer. And she was my choir mistress because I was in the choir, in the church choir, and she was my directress. I had the opportunity to come up with an album. I am really, really grateful that I've been able to use this talent, not just for myself, but let it be a blessing to people around the world.
Josephine has produced several DVDs, including one of her favorites, an African cultural beat in a Cameroonian dialect. She says music knows no language.
The way you can really get into somebody's heart is to speak the language of the person. The song is called Ayene. It means let it be so.
Okay, let's play it.
Great, and it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, Zayn Malik drops his first single since leaving One Direction. We'll be right back.
Decided to increase the repurchase rate by 50 basis points to 6.75% per annum.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Heartbroken One Direction fans around the world, here's something to lift your spirits. Zayn Malik released his debut single, Pillow Talk, on Friday under the name Zayn. The song, which was put out alongside a video, is the first of his upcoming debut album, Mind of Mine. The album is scheduled for release on March 25th, a year after he left the group. Writing to his more than 70 million Twitter followers, Malik tweeted crazy love today after the release. The hashtag Pillow Talk has been trending social media all day. Well, next up, Facebook Inc. smashed investors' expectations with a 52% jump in quarterly revenue as it sold more ads targeted at a fast-growing number of mobile users, sending its shares sharply higher after hours. The social media giant bucked the trend of underwhelming tech results from Apple and eBay. Apart from focusing on mobile, Facebook has been ramping up spending on what it calls big bets, including virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and drones to connect the remotest parts of the world to the internet. The company has also begun monetizing some of its other units, such as photo sharing app Instagram, which surpassed 400 million users last year and began selling ads in September. Well, and finally, police in India's northern state of Uttarakhand came up with a bizarre fitness test in which overweight personnel were made to run while carrying senior officers on their backs. Pot-bellied policemen were made to go through physical tests in the presence of the senior superintendent of police to prove their fitness. A Toby constable was ordered to run with a senior official on his back. The images and video of the incident at once went viral on social media, of course. And that is what is trending today. Well, the viewer's Sunny Yang joins us now to discuss the African Nations Championship Football Tournament, which has reached the quarterly final stage in Rwanda. Sunny, welcome.
Thank you, Vincent. Great to be back on Africa 54.
Very exciting. So what's going on? It looks like the competition in that part of the world, in Rwanda, is something, that is exciting. And tell us a little about it.
Well, it's a relatively new tournament, Vincent. It kicked off in 2009. Some football fans confuse it with the Africa Cup of Nations. This tournament is different in that it's only for locally based players in Africa. In other words, a star player like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang of Gabon, he was the 2015 African Footballer of the Year. He's based in Germany, so he is not eligible to compete in this tournament. It's a new tournament, and it's for local players. I think it's great for the development of the sport in Africa.
To have this differentiation, it's very exciting. But how would you rate now Rwanda's organization of this event?
I think overall, Vincent, the tournament has been a success. Rwanda's president, Paul Kagame, has vowed that it would be a success. Attendance has been very good at the matches, a lot of cheering fans, no real organizational problems to speak of. Rwanda could be in the running as a future host of the big Africa Cup of Nations tournament down the road. But I think they've done a very good job, Vincent.
As always, we're always looking for the goals. Who has been the top goal scorer in this tournament?
Yeah, no, African fans love those goal scorers. Players from Tunisia and Nigeria have been the top goal scorers. Ahmed Akachi, he'll play this weekend against Mali. He has 4 goals. And a Nigerian player, Chisholm Chikatara, also has 4 goals. Nigeria has been eliminated. So this Akachi could very well add to his total this weekend, Vincent.
And we know scouts are always out there. Do you see a chance of someone from this tournament playing in the big leagues?
I do. In fact, one of the Ugandan players, Farouk Mia, they did not make it to the quarterfinals. He was signed by the Belgian club, Standard Liège, during the Chan tournament. So he's a player to watch, and I think we're going to see other young players from Africa really start to grow and make a name for themselves because of this tournament.
What an exciting week. Well, it looks like we have a lot to talk about next week.
Yep,
after this.
We'll see who'll be the new champion.
Yeah.
Tunisia and Democratic Republic of Congo, both former Chan champions. Yeah. Tunisia won in 2011 and the DRC won in 2009.
Great. Thanks a lot, son. Always nice talking to you like this. Remember, don't forget to join Sunny Yang for the latest sports news and notes every Monday and Friday right here on Africa 54. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. And from all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words, where we teach you about words in the news.
When you hear a story about American business, sometimes you hear this phrase, stock market.
Traders are pausing Thursday after the U.S. stock market's longest rally since July.
A stock market is where people buy and sell ownership certificates or stock in companies. Many countries have stock markets.
In the United States, the best known one is the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street. The NASDAQ is another American stock market. Now, when you hear the phrase stock market, your English will be good enough to know what these news words mean.
For more news words, visit our website at learningenglish.voanews.com.